Here's a question for people that are not on the school board currently. How many school board meetings have you attended in the last year? You're not on the school board, but have you attended meetings? Starting with Ms. Miller.
I've attended one meeting in the last year.
Okay. Mr. Smith? Well, you're on the board.
Yes.
Mr. Baskett?
My first meeting will be on the 10th of next month.
Okay. Carol, you're on the board. Mr. Palera?
I've attended one meeting so far.
Okay. And Ms. Perez, you're on the board. Okay.
Lara.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've been attending all of them for the past 5 years.
Okay.
Everyone else.
All right, thank you. Here's a question about that classified staff. There's a general feeling that the needs of the classified staff have not been met and they've sort of been lost. How would you improve the situation moving forward? And what value do you place on the classified staff? We're going to start with Ms. Miller.
Classified staff is very valuable. They're like the blood and guts of the school. The teachers are on the front lines, and the classified staff support the teachers. I've always valued their help and support as a teacher, and I know they're reliable. I can go to them for help, and if they feel their needs are not being met, that needs to be addressed. They keep the school running. They're the interface between the parent and the teachers. As the parents walk in, they're the ones that greet them and say, "Hi, how are ya?" They need to feel like they're appreciated, because they are. I hope they are. They should feel appreciated for all of the hard work that they have to do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith.
I see the classified as the backbone of our organization, and I would like to see the classified as well as the certificated be a part of board meetings at least once a quarter or whatever is appropriate to bring their concerns and to let them know what we are doing. So often I've experienced in the last 4 years that we have the certificated, they dominate attendance at our board meetings, but the classified don't. And so I would like to see them more involved. And I think the classified, they're easier sometimes to let go, and they kind of don't want to really speak out as individuals as much as the teachers, especially if they don't have tenure. This has been something that has been brought to my attention. So again, I'd like to see the classified more involved in the board meetings as well as the certificated. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baskett.
I look at the classified as like the Army looks at NCOs, as a backbone. Without that, without the soldiers being supported by the logistics, by the cooks and all the other people that make an organization work, the organization doesn't function very well. So I'd like to see them have a higher level of visibility and respect.
Thank you. Ms. Karamitsos.
I would just echo what everyone is saying. I think there's going to be unanimity here that obviously classified is vital to the operations of the schools. I think mostly it's making sure that people feel like they have a voice and they're being listened to. Sometimes when you're listened to, you don't get the answer that you expected or you wanted, but everyone should be listened to and validated. So I actually just met this past Monday with our classified head of our classified rep, Krista Ballard. So I think there's definitely it's all about relationships, and I think we just need to foster good relationships.
Thank you. Mr. Palera.
Yes, to echo, the classified are the backbone. You need them. Trying to do the job without them, the teachers would be so busy, the students would be neglected. You have to work as a team, and they're part of the team. So what you need to do when you're part of the team is allow them to give their input. A lot of time what they're seeing, the rest of the faculty doesn't see. They're busy, everybody gets busy doing what they're trained to do and their primary focus. And the people that are out there supporting them every day have good ideas, good suggestions, and they got to be brought to the table along with everybody else, working together in harmony, and that provides the best ground for growth of our students. So I would seek more input from them.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Perez?
I agree with everyone. Classified, hold the organization together. They work very hard. I fully support all the classified employees. And since I've been on the board, I've been available to listen to any concerns or things of concern or how we might be able to resolve issues. So I agree with everyone else. The classified is very important.
All right, Mr. Walsh?
Who can disagree with that? The problem is, historically, when things are tight and money is short, the classified are the first to be cut. And that's a reality that is not going to change, because if we get into a situation where money is tight again, we've got to maintain our classroom first and foremost. And so that might mean janitorial positions, gardening, landscape positions, maybe even some clerical positions would go in return for keeping the classrooms intact. I would approach it that way. That's reality.
Okay, thank you. Oh, we have to start over here. Mr. Brunello?
I look at classified as, the analogy I use, they are the skeleton, the bones of the human body. They hold the program together, and they do a masterful job. I know I'm speaking for the classified in all of the schools that these people are working at. They do a fantastic job, and whenever something needs to be done, call them within a matter of seconds. They're there to help. And I can't say enough about them. They're one of my favorites.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lara?
I think everybody's hit it. Everybody's got the same idea. The classifieds are the backbone. And if elected to the board, would like to be with them if they had concerns or anything. It would be, like Mr. Smith said, would be really nice to have them come to the board meetings, and just have their opinion and just do what we can for them, because they are the backbone. They are the backbone for the teachers, the students. They're the ones that keep the school running, the grounds and everything that's needed for the teachers.
All right, thank you. This one is for everybody. With the diverse student population and stakeholders, what will you do as a board member to ensure that all stakeholders, students, parents, employees, and community members are heard and valued? Diverse student population. We'll start with Mr. Smith.
What I would do what I've been doing over the last 4 years. I go out into the community and I chat with the students. I chat with the parents. I get out and I've been out, for example, with the ICE March, talk to parents to see how they were affected. I just believe that by talking and speaking with the parents, it allows me to understand what is going on. I do it in a variety of settings. Then what I do with that information is I come back, and I've got letters here that I could actually show where I've gone back to the superintendent and said, Superintendent, this is a problem. This is a concern of the parents. We sent it in to you. It wasn't addressed. And I fight for those parents. So this is what I do. This way everyone is represented and everyone has a fair opportunity to have access. The other thing that I do, and I don't think any of my other fellow board members do, is if you look at my business cards, my cell phone number, personal cell phone number is on there so that I can have easy access to the parents. I want them to know that I'm their representative, I'm approachable, as well as I'm there for them.
Thank you. Mr. Baskett.
The issue of diversity and unity has been a long-term struggle. And I think we have, as a country, celebrated sometimes diversity at the expense of the unity. And I think there should be some unifying policies, unifying approaches. However, each child, no matter what the background, no matter what the ethnicity, is precious. And each child will have a little bit different path, perhaps, to getting well-educated, becoming a productive citizen. I think it should be imposed or be volunteered by board members and other people to get out and go visit. As Mr. Will just said, check with the people where they're at, go see what they're doing, and come back and try to build a greater unity among the diverse group that we have.
All right, thank you. Ms. Karamitsos.
Well, we're in a community of, well, and serving over a community of over 100,000 people, so it's a big job to personally interface with all community members, but I think as everyone is bringing up, the key is to avail yourself of people having access to, to speak with you as an individual board member, recognizing that as an individual board member, you really have no authority. As an individual, your authority really rests with the board. So we always want to be careful that that we're really representing ourselves as just a part of the decision-making body. And I think, as Mr. Smith is saying, it's because then we can bring the information back, perhaps information that had not yet come to light. But again, I had said it earlier. It's really about listening and being accessible to people.
Thank you. Mr. Peralta.
I have to agree with the previous speakers. It's making yourself available to the community. It is a diverse, and the population is over 100,000, so you're not going to get out to everybody. But if you're available to at least listen to the concerns, that's what most people want, is they want to feel that they can talk to somebody and listen. Like I said, you can't make promises. As a board member, you're there to advise. You come work with the board at a public setting so the public knows that everything is transparent, everybody knows what's going on. But at least you make yourself available, and it's a voice for the people, and that's all you want to do.
Thank you. Ms. Perez.
Yes, well, I work with students every day and families here in the community. That's my career, that's my job. I also am part of numerous meetings during the week at Hancock and in our local schools. I walk the halls, I visit the schools regularly. I'm very involved. And also, I'm a guest speaker at numerous events and talk to families and students about college and opportunities. I also buy my groceries right here in town, and I see families, and I interact, and they come and ask me questions, and they want information, and I'm available to them. I enjoy actually being available to all the students and the families in my community.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh.
When I first came to the high school district, the mode of presenting information in the classroom was lecture. Social studies teachers, which I was, lectured every day. English teachers lectured. Science teachers lectured. Kids got lectured to from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank God those days are gone. Now it's hands-on problem-solving time. And students are presented with problems. They work in groups or they work individually. They try to solve those problems, and then they share the information they come up with. That's a much better way to educate each other.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brunello.
Yeah, I've had some pretty tough cookies. During my years of teaching, I taught 14 years in junior high, and some of those kids, they were bigger than some of our teachers. But occasionally, I'd run into someone that didn't quite disagree, I ran into some students that didn't quite agree with my philosophy. And so I had to make a decision. And my decision, normally 99.9% of the time, resolved the problem. And I would talk to the student, and I said, hey guy, I want to see you after school. So we'll wait till after school, and then I'd go into the office, talk to the principal, and I explained to the principal what I was going to do. And it was the boy and myself. And I says, what's your phone number? And he gave me the phone number. I called his dad, and I would talk to his dad. I said, I have a guy by the name of so-and-so. And Dad, right away, he wanted to know what happened. And I said, well, what happened is he disobeyed. And we want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And then in front of the child, I tell him exactly what he did. And I looked at him and I said, you agree with me? And he says, yeah, good. Now talk to Dad.
Okay,
and then I would be in the,
thank you. Mr. Lara?
Yeah, if elected to the board, I would go out to the community and to the parents and feel their concerns, and not just by myself, like Ms. Karamitsos said, I would bring it to the board as discussions, just, and be there to hear for the kids and for the parents.
Okay. Ms. Miller?
Most of my teaching career was in a very diverse community, very similar to this. Even though I'm from Orange County, there are areas that have a very high English learner population. In fact, parts of Orange County, you're more likely to hear 108 different languages in the classroom in many parts. I'm certainly aware of how to address the diversity in the community. That's what I had to do for many years. There are programs that you can start. They don't cost money. Hey, answer that doesn't cost money, but programs at the school level to encourage parent involvement. A lot of the diversity involves different cultural points of view, and the more that the administrators and teachers understand the cultural differences, the better they're able to address them. In some of the programs I've been involved with have addressed the parents' shyness to come onto campus, and they were very successful in getting the parents involved and aware of how American schools differ from other schools. There's a lot we can do. It doesn't cost money.
All right, thank you. This question is about funding. LCFF is Local Control Funding Formula. And another one is LCAP. And how do the districts create these plans, and what experience do you have with large budgets? So if you know about the plans, you can help explain, and then talk about your experience with a large budget. We'll start with Mr. Baskett.
These acronyms are always interesting, and each group has its own set of acronyms, but the issues are always the same. Where do the funds come from? How do they get allocated? The largest projects I've been involved with, been a while, were close to the $1 billion range, and the most recent ones were in the 30 to 40 million, and we had to allocate and do things and get things done and have ribbon cuttings. The principles are the same, though. You have sometimes restrictions on budget, on funds that come in for specific purposes. Some people, some projects, dedicated funds. And how you divide these things up will always be a point of discussion and point of the different opinions. And I participate in that, hopefully with some experience, and I'll still learn all of the shortcuts. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Karamitsos.
Well, LCFF is a new funding formula for the state of California. Prior to this past year, we're in the first year of it. The template for our funding is actually coming from the state. In the past, property taxes in an area are sent to the state, and the state then sends us a figure of money. Lately, the dollars went way down. Over the past few years, we're in a huge deficit in terms of what the state owes us. And it's based on ADA, or average daily attendance, which is a figure that comes out sometime in the spring. It's a moving target every year. So schools actually don't get paid until June or July for the year that they have already spent their money. We do have also an LCAP plan in our district, and that came from last year we had a strategic planning. I'm just trying to define the terms for people, so do you want me just to stop and let somebody else define the LCAP? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Palera.
Well, the LCAP was as the doctor said, it was a new plan the governor came up with. And the LCAP, the school districts were to get together with the community, the faculty, and the staff and figure out the best way to use the funds to assist the English learners, the foster students, and there's a third group that was identified on the money. And the plan was a joint plan, and I believe the district from They had a workshop, they held this plan, and there was like 36 people involved, more than that, to come up with the plan that's being used. And it's my understanding that everybody got a say in the plan, so I'm hopeful that that did occur, because the school had to come up with a plan to present to the state. So that's where the LCAP came from. Working in the sheriff's department, the sheriff had the largest budget in the county, and as part of a commander, I worked on that and had to live under that. So.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Perez.
Yes, the LCAP and the LCFF has allowed some flexibility in spending with our schools, which I think is great. It's something that was needed, and we're still in the process on this board in defining what we're going to do with it. In fact, our next board meeting is going to cover a lot of those issues, but just to let the community know what we've already started doing. We hired new counselors, I mentioned that earlier. We have a new parent portal that allows parents to see grades. We have wireless internet at our schools. So we're already implementing, we're using those funds to provide new services. The last 6 or 7 years have been very difficult at all of our educational systems, and it appears to me that we're slowly now coming back and providing the services that we had cut or that we needed in the past. So the LCAP and the LCFF is much needed funding to continue to provide services for students.
Thank you.
I think the positive in all this is in the last 4 or 5 years, there's been excellent communication between classified, certificated, and administration over using money. Instead of it being a hand-me-down system from the superintendent, it's a cooperative system which benefits everyone.
Thank you. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry, we have to start there. All right, back to the beginning. Mr. Brunello.
Yes.
Okay, the question is, these funding, LCFF and LCAP, how do the districts create these? And what experience have you had with budgets?
Well, with budgets, we deal with them to a certain extent every board meeting. They come in and we have whatever project we need to generate some funds, and it comes to the board, and then there are a lot of questions that are asked, and then we vote. And if we have a majority, then we move it forward. But it's not that much, it's not a complicated process, because we have an excellent business manager that he makes money for us in terms of how he writes it up, how he communicates with the state people. Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Lara.
I don't have any experience with the LCFF and the LCAP, not being on the board, but I have been following it. But if put on the board, I would really get into it deep and have more of an experience on it.
Okay, Ms. Miller.
When I heard about these programs, I was thrilled and excited that the local control was going to be back to local control. I think no school district, nobody knows the students better than the local school district, the school board. Having our education system run at the state level, I thought was not a good idea, mainly because at the state level, they do not address individual student needs. They don't address communities like ours with such a diverse population. It's a one-size-fits-all from the state level down, and now we finally have the opportunity to address some of these needs. We're given some local control. We can make sure there's wireless where we need wireless. We make sure there's aides in the classroom that needs aides, student helpers, and it's all because of local control. We know best how to teach our students, and the state gives us the standards, but they don't know best.
All right, Mr. Smith.
Yes, my experience with the money situation, I was in the Air Force as a personnel specialist, And I manage multi-million-dollar programs, from lead programs to travel programs and a variety of other things that are associated with the personnel field. Also, being a part of the board for the last 4 years, we've actually built a school, and we had to make decisions on the multi-million-dollar school that we're building, Apache and other things. I also had the opportunity, I probably of all the board members, I question spending on a constant basis. Sometimes they don't want to let me know what the answers are, but I went to the state and so forth to find out answers. Also, for the LCAP, those funds, I think they should be used for student programs, making sure sufficient staff and resources are in place for effective learning, to ensure effective and efficient learning systems are in place. And the biggest thing that I have is it's not about the money, it's about what you do with the money. Everyone says that they're glad that we have all this money, but if you have money and don't take care of it, then it's not doing you any good. And I'm really big about the LCAP being used to evaluate the effectiveness of our educational program. That's one of the things I like to see our school district do.
All right, thank you. I think we started with Mr. Baskett. Okay. With the contentious contract negotiations in the high school district last year and some board meetings, how will you personally commit to increasing positive, non-threatening communication between employees of the district? We're going to start with Ms. Karamitsos.
Yeah, it was a very trying year for anybody that attended our board meetings. There was a lot of emotion in the meetings, and it's understandable because people want to feel that they're being heard, and so people would show up to the meetings to voice their individual opinions behind their faculty leadership. We met last night. There was the Faculty Association invited us to interview with them, and I'll just echo what I said in that meeting, and that is it's really about getting to know people. When you know somebody personally, then it's much easier to be able to know what their needs are. And so what I think is the most important thing is again, availing yourself of having relationships with individual faculty members. So, make yourself available. I always tell people I'm willing to talk to you anytime.
Thank you. Mr. Palera.
Well, from what I read and heard, that was a very trying time. One thing that the board can do is at that board meeting must maintain a level of decorum. Once you let a meeting break down, no matter what the topic is, you might as well close the meeting. You can't allow individuals to get up, shout, yell things, call people names. There has to be a level of decorum. And the board is responsible for maintaining that level of decorum. I don't care whether it's a parent, faculty, or staff member. If they get out of line, the board chair should point that out and say it's not going to be tolerated. If you maintain control, then everybody gets a voice and you can hear what they have to say. So that's one thing that can be done, is keeping decorum at the board meetings.
All right, thank you. Ms. Perez.
I was appointed right in the middle of that time frame, and I know it was a very difficult time for everyone. And being new to the board, what I did is I went to some of the employees that had concerns, and I went to some of the parents that had concerns, and I spoke with them individually. And I wanted to listen to their concerns and understand. And so at that time, I felt that it was just important for me to listen and try to understand what was going on.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh?
I was the chairman of the board during that time, so I got to chair the meetings, which is fun. But I think when you get a stressful time like that, you have to slow down. And I think we did slow down. It's like, we're going to give you an opportunity to say what you need to say. We're going to listen to you. We're going to chew on what you give us. And then we'll make a decision. But we want to hear you out. And I think that's the instrumental thing, communication. And when communication lines break down, that's when the stress level goes way up, and the arguments come, and disaffection comes. So let's just slow down and communicate.
Thank you. That was mostly for the high school board. This is for everybody. How does being an educator make one a more or less effective board member? And if you're not an educator, does that make you more or less effective? So we're going to start with Mr. Bruno this time.
Okay. Being an educator really helped me in terms of analyzing situations that cost money. And then also I gave me some background information from my teaching on what kind of questions to ask, because I'm always thinking as a board member, these funds and whatever programs are going to be passed is going to be basically for the teachers or classified or the kids. And so I have to make a decision in my mind, and then I go from there. And I just make sure that whatever I vote on is going to be beneficial to our students.
Okay. Mr. Lara.
Well, I'm not an educator, but I like to feel like I'm an educator because I like to interact, well, I shouldn't say interact, I like to help children when they're in a time where they're having difficulties with any of their schoolwork. I have friends and nieces and nephews, but just knowing that little bit that I give to a child in that they're thriving or striving on something in school makes me feel good. So I feel like I'm an educator in a way.
Okay. Ms. Miller.
I feel that every educator has a passion for students, and that's why we're here as school board members, school people. I've been on the front lines. I know my clients well. I know what the students need. I was a teacher. I know what the teachers need. I have an education in education, both at the postgraduate and PhD level. I know the mechanics of how to run a school district. And as an educator, I feel I have the heart to help to run or lead a school district. And you can get different points of view, and they're just as valid as every point of view. You don't have to be an educator to be on the school board. You just have to have, I feel, a passion for education, high quality education that meets the needs of every single student. Nobody needs to be passed by. And we're here for the students. And as long as everybody recognizes those are our clients, then I feel their needs will be met effectively.
Okay. Mr. Smith.
I am an educator, and being an educator has helped because you can understand through the experiences through education and actually being on the job, you can understand the development of children, and you could also understand the system that you're working in, especially when you worked in it for 9 years as I have. That helps you. The downside of it is that I think being an educator, if you are not used to the business perspective of how to deal with business as far as balancing and looking at making decisions that are business decisions and not based off of just your education, that could create a problem if you don't have business sense. And I think this is a problem because sometimes I think that we think because we're educators, we're the best suited to run the school districts. And I disagree with that to a large degree because I think that it takes diversity to run a school board. Just because you're an educator doesn't mean you're smarter, but it takes, as they said, the village, and you have to have people with diverse backgrounds that can come in and add a new perspective onto what we're doing sometimes.
All right. Mr. Baskett.
We're all educators to one degree or the other. As little kids growing up, I spent quite a bit of time in the military as a military instructor. I've also had federal instructor licenses. But I agree that sometimes it's good to have that mix of people. You have the professional folks who are working, certified classroom instructors, who are focused on that. And sometimes you need to have the outside viewpoints to come in from different backgrounds to sort of keep the things glued together perhaps a little bit better. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Karamitsos.
The most important thing about being a board member is really to make sure that you recognize that it's not about yourself, that you're serving your community and you're serving the school district for whom you've been appointed. And I've had a really very favorable experience being on a board that does have diversity. We have 3 people who are in education, and we have me as a physician and Victor Tognazzini, who's a farmer. And what I commonly see is just as Mr. Smith is saying, that diversity actually, Victor and I will bring issues or viewpoints from a different angle than maybe the educators would see it. So we learn a lot, and on the flip side, I learn a lot from my colleagues who are educators. So I think diversity is key.
Thank you. Mr. Palera.
I agree. Diversity, that's why the board is made up of 5 individuals. It's good to have an educator on the board, but you also want a cross-section of your community from various professions and jobs on the board, because then you're not myopic. You get views from different perspectives, and it helps when you have to make a decision. So I think while it's good to have an educator on the board, I don't think it's necessary at all. I think it's good to have different people coming from the community, as long as they have the desire to help and they want to make a positive difference for the students in the community. That's the main thing.
All right, Ms. Perez.
I agree with the diversity. I think what educators bring to the table is that sometimes it is a bit challenging to keep up with all the changes in education. There's new policies, there's new bills, new assessment for students, new career and college pathways, new technology. So sometimes there is a lot. So I agree that there needs to be some diversity, but educators do keep up with all of those changes.
All right, Mr. Walsh.
I am a professional educator, but I'm also a lifelong learner. And in the last 7 or 8 years, I've learned more about the wine industry than anything I've learned in my life. My daughter and son-in-law have a winery back in Kansas City. I have worked from planting little plants, to pruning, to picking, to smashing, to fermenting, to bottling, and it's a whole new life. I hope to continue to be a lifelong learner. I think that affects how I deal with things on the school board.
All right, thank you. We started with Mr. Brunello. Okay, we're going to have to wrap up. Everybody has 2 minutes to give their closing statement. We're going to start with Ms. Karamitsos, and we're going to go around. So you have 2 minutes for a wrap-up.
Well, again, I just want to thank you all for coming on a Wednesday night. I hope to be able to serve this community another 4 years. It's really not about me, as I was saying before. It's about the students and the people who support the students and who best the community would like to represent them in order to carry out that job. And hearing the answers from everyone sitting up here, I think that you're not going to go wrong. We're going to continue to be a very strong high school district and moving forward in allowing our children of our community to reach their dreams. So thank you very much.
Also, thank you for coming tonight. I heard some things tonight that makes me more determined to run than ever. I heard one of the board members say, an adequate job is being done with our security, and let's keep the status quo. Well, I will tell you this, if elected to the board, an adequate job will never be sufficient. When you say your security is adequate, it's a recipe for disaster. You should always be looking for ways to improve. When you say that the classified needs to be cut, that's just a fact of life. When you have to cut your janitors and all that to keep a teacher. Well, I've sat there and had to cut those individuals in the sheriff's department, and I sweated and looked for every dollar I could to save those people. Because when you make a cut, somebody still has to do that job, and you're probably taking the teacher's time and devotion to do something else. So I wouldn't be very cavalier when you have to make a cut of a classified individual. Those are the things that concern me. The accountability you will get from me. The dollars that we spend will go to the right places. Always keeping in mind the students, but you got to remember, you just can't say, I can cut that, it doesn't matter, I'm going to keep a teacher. Well, if the teachers now have to pick up that job, what did that do? You have to look at where you're spending your funds and spend them wisely. So I'm committed to security, transparency, and accountability. Thank you very much, and I hope I have your support.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for being here tonight. It was a pleasure for me. I've been on the board for about 8 months. I would love to continue another 4 years. There's a lot that I think that I can give to my community and the school district. I'd like to keep those post-secondary ties strong, not only with Allen Hancock College, but also UCSB and Cal Poly and other universities for students. I want to keep the school district informed as much as possible. Also, when I thought about what would I like to do in the next 4 years, I thought about the growth. Our community is going to continue to grow. I want to keep the classroom size small for students. If Bonita has over 16,000 students, those students are coming to the high school district very soon. And so we're going to need to plan. We're going to need to think ahead on how we're going to serve those students in the next decade or so. So it's very important. I want to be part of that. Also, I mentioned to you, I worked for UC Santa Barbara for many years, and so we worked on those standards of eligibility for college. And while I support students going on to college and universities, there's also a segment of our population that need vocational programs, and I want to focus on that. I want to make sure that all of our kids have choices. They're not all going to go to college and succeed, but they need to be part of our workforce, and they need to make a living here. So I want to make sure that we have some good vocational programs. And I want to support our teachers and our students. I know there's a lot of work to be done. I know that, and I think that I've got the energy, I've got kids in the school district, and I'm ready to give the best that I can to this community, and I want to represent the school district well. Thank you.
I'm still on the Brigade campus every Tuesday. I'm the advisor for the Interact Club at Brigade. So I see students every week. And they're good kids. They are really good kids. I'm almost overwhelmed with how much they're smarter than I was when I was in school. What I'm pleased with tonight is to see the candidates assembled here. This is a good group of people. As a community, I don't think you can lose. You're in good shape, whatever you choose.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for being here this evening. I really enjoyed it. We had some good interaction here. And I can come to the conclusion that every one of these board members up here that I heard are outstanding people and they'll do the job, that's for sure. But anyhow, I would like to give another 4 years for the Santa Maria Bonita, because I know in 4 years there are some big issues that has to be addressed. The common goals and some of the programs that we have to come up with answers, such as we need a high school, we need a junior high school, we need an elementary school, and right now we're in the middle of just searching for property and where we can place another school, hopefully, if we get the bond passed. So there's just a lot of big issues coming up that I like to be there to address and work with those issues. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for all coming. I'm going to make this short, me coming from my heart. It's all about the kids. And if I'm elected to the board, I'm going to make it my purpose to work with the school board what's best for the kids in the district and the staff. And that's really all I have to say about it. Thank you for coming.
The purpose of public education is to prepare children to become positive contributing members to society. As a person who's taught at all levels, I feel that I can be effective at the elementary level, because that's where good public education starts, is at the elementary level. Students need a quality of education that prepares them for the upper grades and beyond into college. As I said, there's programs that we can encourage parent involvement. There's after-school programs that we can encourage. I love that program after school at Rigetti. It's great. I was involved in after-school programs, and the kids loved it. It was a science club, and they loved it. They had the best time. So with teachers and helpers, parent volunteers willing to assist in these programs, we can give the enrichment activities that students need in order to stay motivated and to stay in school through high school, as well as to go on beyond. It's thrilling to hear how Ellen Hancock is involving themselves in the lower grades as well, so that they are encouraging students to go on beyond just a high school and improve their lives with a good education, whether it's academics or vocational, either how. But the students need a good, solid foundation that begins in the elementary schools. And I would be honored to get this position, and that would be my focus, is to make very sure that students' needs are addressed at this level, that they're given the adequate instruction they need to go on in school, as well as hopefully the individualized attention that they need. And I feel that's one of the biggest items that students need these days, is that individual attention. I don't think they get it enough, and largely because of the larger class sizes or the overwhelming paperwork that teachers are given. And I'm glad that climate is changing. I've seen it change. Thank you.
I thank the League of Women Voters and the Times, along with those who came out tonight and those that will be viewing this, for giving your precious time. My main things are, I'm concerned again about high quality student education, where parents are not questioning a choice between the Bonita School District and other districts that they want to send their kids to because they feel that we're not meeting their needs. I'm for building safety, the community voice being heard, smaller class sizes, fair hiring practices, challenging institutionalized practices that are not effective, and bringing more transparency to the board. These are a few of the principles I stand for. I have been tried, tested, and proven in the area of representing you and your children. They deserve the best. And I, as a candidate, if you elect me, I will continue to strive and fight for that, to ensure that our children are receiving the best education possible. I just cannot stand by and watch 19 schools in the largest district of this, district in this county, all 19 schools failing. I have vowed that regardless of whether I'm on this board or not, that I'm going to fight until we get some of our schools off of that track. We need a change. And I believe that if you elect me, I will be more than glad to try to work with the group that we have in place to bring about a change. Thank you.
First, I'd like to repeat my congratulations for the high test scores of the high schools. Remarkable. Only two things. One is, we talked a little bit about the LCAT and the LCFS, and that gives a little bit more financial flexibility to the local schools. I think there should be more of that. Much more local control of local schools. Security. Security is a bit of a personal passion. I've seen the results of security. I think it's going to be a continuing evaluation, continuing testing of security, continuing improvements. And I think other schools in other states have adopted some security policies and security practices that should be evaluated and looked at here. The last thing I ever want to see here in this beautiful town with these beautiful students in these excellent schools is a tragedy as other places have had, including China. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. We appreciate your spending time with us. We hope that the audience has a better insight into what these candidates are all about. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan, as you know. We are having a forum right here in this room Saturday morning at 10 o'clock with the pros and cons of Measure P. So we hope that you'll all be here to hear both sides of that story. There's league materials on the back table. The candidate materials are out in front. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Yeah.